Hi there. I am the CRM Ninja, and on today's episode of the Oops Factor, I am really happy to have Garry Trinder. Welcome to the show, Garry.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's great to have you on. I think with your work background, we have quite a few friends in common.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yes, yes. I'd be interested to know who put my name forward.
That is a slight secret, but the reason that I've got the background that I have at the moment is because I understand you are very into open source stuff.
Yes, that would be a slight understatement. Yes, open source is definitely the community passion, if you like. It's the passion outside of work. So much that it creeps into my everyday pretty much.
Okay, so go on, expand on that. How did you get into open source? How much
um,
time do you spend on it? What really interesting things have you been doing?
So, getting into open source. So I've been kind of working in, I guess, development for a number of years, working on different projects, doing work for different companies. And, some projects are great, some are not so great. And there's always kind of, you get to a point where you're thinking, is there something else? How do I expand my skills, do something a little
True.
bit different?
Yeah.
So open source was kind of this kind of strange, mysterious land, if you like. I could hear things about GitHub and all these strange terminologies, and you're thinking it sounds quite interesting. What's it all about? And then you get to find that there's people out there who are building tools to solve everyday problems, right?
Yeah.
So CRM, your background, right? XRM Toolbox is a great example of that, of community driven tooling. My background,
It is indeed.
yeah.
I have even heard product engineering turn around and say they wish they had thought of that and did that.
Yeah, and that's what's really interesting, right? Is that it's just a group of people kind of focusing on a problem and then being really creative about it. And I really like that as a way of delivering software, because it's not really fixed, right? Everything's nice and flexible and you can change direction. But that it's that core focus of, we're trying to solve a problem, and generally the people who are trying to solve that problem are vested in it. They've got an interest,
Yeah.
right? Either from their own skills, or that they've actually got a problem that they can see, oh, this tool does 90% of the thing that I need it to do. If I can apply that next 10%, then great, I solve my problem, but I'm also helping develop the tool, add new features, and you become really part of something, right? It lives, right? Once you've
Yeah.
contributed to an open source project, it's there for, well, forever, really. As long as people are using it, people are going to use your code or your contribution to that project, whatever that may be, whether it's code or whether it's documentation, or just helping it progress, helping other people use the tool. So that kind of that ability to learn something new, get involved in the community, have something that's driving you forward rather than just what you do at work. So I kind of looked around, and Microsoft 365 community, if you like, from the SharePoint background that I originally came from. There was the PNP initiative, Patterns and
Yeah.
Practices, and numerous tools. So if you've ever done anything with SharePoint in SharePoint Online, you've probably used PNP PowerShell, right?
Might have
And there are
done
all
once or
these,
twice.
yeah, exactly. Great tools, solve a huge problem, really heavily used, and a lot of people contribute to that project as well. But I wanted to kind of look at different projects that were out there, and just say, okay, well, how do I actually contribute? So what are the first initial steps? So I didn't really set out to kind of pick a particular project. I just kind of went round a few. So I did
Okay.
a submission to PNP PowerShell. I did a submission to PNP JS. I then did CLI, what is now CLI for Microsoft 365, just to kind of get a feel of, well, what's the project like? How's it run? every project is different as well. There's different rules, there's different feelings of, you put an issue in an issues list, and just the response that you get, kind of like that to and fro. So is this a community that I think I'm going to stick with? Well, CLI for Microsoft 365 was that repository that I submitted to and kept coming back to.
Nice.
So I added a few commands into that tool. I did a code contribution. Really liked it. Thought I'll keep doing more. And luckily got asked if I'd like to help out and maintain the project.
Wow.
So actually become part of the team that are going to drive this forward over a sustained period. And that was back in summer of 2019. And
so long ago.
It seems like an absolute eternity. Definitely when you think about now, thinking, wow, what was life back in 2019? So different. And yeah, I just grew from there. So learning about how you build a community, how people can contribute to a project, how you deal with those kind of situations. People are coming to spend their time to contribute to your project, right? Their free time. They've given this time up to just work on this because that's what they're passionate about. So I really like that kind of side of open source. Yes, there's a technical side, but there's a real community, a real personal side to open source as well. And yeah, a few years later, still in the project, still doing contributions. I was just doing a little bit before I came on the call as well. So
dedicated to the cause.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I mentioned, code, it lives on, right? And in GitHub, it will live on until, people stop using it, because we've got a responsibility now. People have been using the tool in their projects, right? For customers, and people are relying on this to carry on and keep working. So that's kind of another driver as well, is that you've got people using your tool. It's a product, really, when you think
That's
about
true.
it. So you can't just go, no, I'm stopping now, because a lot of people unhappy, but I mean, that does happen. There is a bit of a risk of that, but the way that we've set ourselves up as a team, there's myself and 6 other maintainers. It's quite a large team, that we spread the load, if you like, of managing an open source project.
That's really awesome. That is really awesome. Obviously, as you mentioned, XRM Toolbox, which I'm a user of, as many others, including lots of people within Microsoft, and there just so many other open source projects out there. So going from open source to the oops factor, what do you have to share?
I guess for the oops, I guess it's one of those painful memories that you kind of go, I really don't want to go back to this this dark place. And it really, the oops factor, if you like, was a project that I was let's say parachuted into as we need some help on this project, do you want to help? And of course, yes, at the time I was really enthusiastic, and I'll jump into any project, and that's fine.
So you were given a choice.
I was given a choice, yes.
And it was an actual choice rather than, do you want to help? You have to say yes.
It was a, we think that you might be able to help. Is a problem that you can solve. And straight out, I was like, yeah, I can solve that problem. Let's go and do it.
Got it.
But actually, it's funny. It's the technology part wasn't the hard part. It was the project itself. So when you join a project midway, you kind of get a feeling for something's not quite right here. And this was an interesting project in the sense that it was an agile delivery. Okay, agile. I like working in agile way.
Properly agile with a customer understanding agile delivery.
Well, yes and no. My experience, I've probably not come across a customer that 100% fully understands it, but we had ceremonies, we were doing the usual of daily stand-ups, and we've got sprint reviews and all the I guess required ceremonies. However, as we were going through this project, there seemed to be slight panic in some people's faces as we were delivering things that the customer was asking for. In the agile way, a scope can be flexible, it can change, we can go in different directions, the fear was because someone in the group who had been able to see contracts of what we were there to deliver, the contract was let's say not agile, and the contract had a list of things that had to be delivered, which was
a contract. We're referring to the statement of works, setting out the engagement terms, right? Okay,
exactly. Setting all that out. So you go from we've been working for, or rather the team where I was working with, who had already been working on this, had the moment of, we've been working for quite a while here. We've done what the customers asked through, the changes that they've asked for, but actually there's a whole shopping list of things that we've not even discussed, and we've not even got to. And that's part of the statement of work, right? So it's not a case of not delivering them. They have to be delivered. And that was a huge, big, oops in the room. And then it was, okay, how do we do this? So you take one huge, big, oh no, and then rapidly think, okay, how do we get there? And the irony is the agile way of thinking helps you get there, right? Because you really start to strip everything back, and you look at how lean everything can be to go, okay, this is what we actually need to deliver. I say this as the oops moment. I found it really interesting that whilst I was working on this project and traveling to the customer site, which was quite a way, I had quite a few hours on a Monday to contemplate my journey to the customer. I started listening to audiobooks. And the book that I was actually listening to was The Phoenix Project, DevOps.
Oh, that is an amazing book.
It is an absolute amazing book. And the parallels of some of the things that were happening and in this project and what I was listening to was, quite uncanny, and that really started a drive and a passion for DevOps. Definitely.
There's a follow-up book. I can't remember the title off the top of my head, but they actually came out with a second book to it.
They did. It was the Unicorn Project.
That was it. Yes.
Two fantastic books, and it's interesting because they sound, well, they're novels, right? But they're IT novels, and it's a bit geeky. But actually, I find it's the people side of that DevOps kind of area that's the most fascinating. And that issue, that oops, was all down to kind of lack of communication between different groups of, here we've got the customer, the product owner, the people doing the work, a lack of context as to why we're doing it, what we need to do, what do we need to achieve. I find that fascinating, because you then get into the people side of things, and psychologies of people and teams, and just kind of really fascinates me. But that was an interesting book to be reading whilst all that was going on.
Yes, obviously quite appropriate in terms of sorting out. So there obviously can be many factors as to why a delivery team at some point throughout the delivery, through the delivery of the project, whether start, middle, or hopefully not towards the end, because if you realize, but may not actually know all of the deliverables. Because even with agile projects, there are still deliverables that need to be given. In your mind, obviously you weren't with this project team from the start, but in your mind, what do you think were the main factor or the main factors as to why they got however far through the project that they did without realizing that there was a lot of other stuff that actually needed to be delivered to the customer, because from the sound of it, the customer were talking about their requirements they needed, and they didn't mention any of this other stuff.
Yeah, it was interesting because there were, I guess, numerous teams that were involved, and it was the statement of works had been written up, and I think it's we talked about maturity earlier, right? About customers knowing, oh, did you know it in a full agile sense? And I think that there's an element of, yes, you can change what you're doing, but I always go back to, well, if we've written a statement of work and that has key deliverables in there, that's the thing that you can't change, right? Or if you do need to change it, you need to highlight that it needs to change, right? And then go through the necessary controls, which sounds strange coming from an agile sense, right? You should be changing things and being able to change at will, if like, through the different sprints. But if you've got a statement of work there, right, you've got to go through the proper process to get that amended.
There is a contractual legal agreement in place, which if the customer wanted to be nasty, they could say, you've delivered us this great thing, but you haven't delivered us what's in there.
Exactly. And those are the things that I think, certainly from an agile perspective, sometimes what you hear, or the visions of how this works, and it's kind of utopian, yeah, we can change and all that's fine, is sometimes the realities of how businesses actually work with contracts and statements of work is, that's still there. It doesn't not exist anymore because we're delivering it in a different way. We could still have done it in more of like an iterative fashion, having stand-ups and sprint reviews and all that, and get in front of the customer and showing them what we're building as we're going through. Still do that in a fixed kind of statement of work approach. But yeah, I think there's just a bit of a disconnect really, in terms of okay, we can work in this way, but actually we're constrained by this other thing, which is like you say, the statement of work.
So if companies want to work in an agile fashion, and obviously different companies have some different views of what agile actually means, leaving aside the official manifesto for it. Traditionally, statement of work's been very waterfall based, whereby you've got all the deliverables set out, starting at a high level and going down to somewhat of a low level. Yeah. So what, in your mind, if a company wants to work in an agile fashion, should a statement of work actually look like?
So that's a really interesting question. When I've looked at this before, I guess earlier a few years ago, when I was kind of more in front of the customer and saying, yeah, this is what we're going to do. I would look at it as a sense of the agreement between both parties really is getting to that kind of common understanding of how you're going to work, what process you're going to go through. So if you're going to use Scrum, here are the inspection points. It's going to be more of potentially a capacity-based model rather than here's everything fixed, because as we're going through this agile process, what we're saying is we're going to discover whether the things that you think are important that you've set out at the beginning are actually still important as you are going through the work, because things might change. So those items that you might put in at the beginning might be like an MVP, or things that you want to aspire to. They're optimistic kind of goals. Those may change through, the iterative development and retrospection of, okay, we've done this for 2 weeks. We've delivered what we wanted for this particular sprint. Now, has anything changed? Do we need to change direction? Do we need to, slightly modify what we're trying to achieve based on the time that we've got available to us as well, right? I think that's one of the key things that I think both parties really need to understand is that there are goals that we're trying to achieve. This is how we're going to get there. but actually also taking a view of there may be things that we will find out that will either slow down, speed up, or actually block us to actually get there. And those are things that we just don't know at the beginning, but we're going to go through and we're going to work through that. And give you a point to uncover these unknowns and then make a decision, so that I always love it as you want to find all your problems out in the first couple of weeks, not in 6 months' time when you've spent a load of money on it. You want to get those out immediately so that you can make that decision and go, oh, okay, due to the landscape that we're in, that it might be more difficult to achieve what the customer needs. But yeah, it's an interesting thing because obviously that has a level of maturity with it and a level of compromise as well. I think in some cases it's strange to be saying, okay, yes, we can do that, but actually there's all these things that are in the way that are going to potentially impede us from doing that, and maybe we need to change, and we need to change the way that we're working, and you're asking the customer to then potentially change the way that they work as well. But I've found that, my experience by working in that way, by being open, by making changes based on the work that you've done, and the way of working as well is crucial. And it has I think having that open and transparent approach really helps get customers on board anyway, because you're just kind of like, look, we're not trying to hide things. This is as it is. We're going to make the right decision, and we're going to make a decision based on all the facts that we've got.
No, that's very true. I think I'm really appreciative for you sharing that, because this is obviously something that affects, I think, lots of organizations that are trying to work in an agile manner for it. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing that and your thoughts around it.
That's right. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you. Viewers, we hope that you've enjoyed this episode and learned some very, very interesting things about working with Agile and Statement of Works. Feel free to check out the rest of the Oops Factor playlist, subscribe to the channel, and take a look at the blog. And if you'd like to come on the show, hit the link somewhere in the description below, fill in your details, and I'd love to have you on. But above all, have an amazing day.